Hey guys, Troll 9002 here. I've got a story for you finally. I know I'm a slacker, but I can't help it. I gotta work. I'm essential. Right? I know. Anyway, this is called a troll where? You don't say. It all started one day in spring when a troll appeared in a garden. Oh sure, gardens are gnome territory, but Ronnie didn't care. She wanted to live in a beautiful flower garden. She not only loved the roses, daisies, and honeysuckle that grew, but there was also a steady year-round growth of periwinkle flowers. Periwinkles are perennials, but given the right soil, the right kind of love, and the bop of a magic from troll, not a gnome, they are always available when needed. Ronnie possessed the magical bop. Why were periwinkle flowers so important, you ask? Because they are the flowers that she would need to make a shoe called a winklepicker. What in the world is a winklepicker? I had no idea until I was partaking in a night of glorious trivia with the Misfits and Dreamers YouTube channel. The question was, on what part of your body do you wear winklepickers on? I had no idea. I stuck out a bunch of answers, but none of them was right, and then somebody answered your foot. I was like, what in the world? So I looked them up later, and they are the ugliest shoe ever. They came out in the 50s as a men's fashion statement with pointy toes. Here's what they look like. Guys, really? Couldn't stay away from the witch shoe? You had to make your own? I mean, ew. Thank you for that trivia moment. I will remember it forever. Maybe one day it'll be a final Jeopardy question. Please remember to subscribe to the Misfits and Dreamers Facebook page and their YouTube channel. I'll include both links in the description. And please, after you subscribe, do partake in a trivia night. They are fun. Anyway, back to Ronnie the Troll. The way Ronnie made the winklepickers was all according to how she saw the inside of the person, which was hard considering most of Ronnie's business dealings were online. But she coped and she got it done, and every client she had loved their winklepickers. I mean, after all, trolls were afraid of garden gnomes, so they wouldn't venture into a garden to get shoes or anything else. In fact, when Ronnie moved into the garden from the troll city that she came from, they just wrote her off as crazy and took her off the census counts, and all the trolls, for the most part, just shunned her. It was never clear what actually happened, but you know how trolls can be. The shunning didn't stop the other trolls from seeing and buying the winklepickers online. That sure means that Ronnie could never open her own shop, mostly because she couldn't get people in it, and gnomes weren't known for wearing winklepickers either. Ronnie was a different troll. She was a future dreamer troll, and her family always told her she would never be anything. Even if she accomplished something huge, like her winklepicker business, it was never good enough or even impressive enough. For a long time, Ronnie was okay with that, and she convinced herself she was better off on her own. But there were times in that solitude she wondered if she was supposed to do more with her life. But she decided that was a two-way street and gave up on it. The sun was starting to set on the day, and Ronnie had been turning out winklepickers all day. With each move of the hand, another part of the shoe would have so much thought and love stitched or sewn into it. Ronnie decided, after adding the last bop into the last pair of shoes for the day, to call it a day. She decided to go for a walk by herself, to think about life. After a while, the human of the garden came out to tend to it. First, he watered it and made the ground soft so it was easier to pull the weeds out. Ronnie, dancing between the giant water droplets, caught the attention of a garden gnome. That was not her intention. But the gnome was raised to think that trolls don't belong in gardens, so he was naturally curious, and George had never seen or encountered a real troll. He didn't know or understand what the big deal was, but his mama always told him to stay away from them, or he would be dragged away to the woods and never seen again. A warning until this point George had never taken seriously, but he had never encountered a troll, so how could he take it seriously? But when he saw Ronnie, something just told him everything would work out just fine. Like George, before Ronnie was cast out from the troll village, her family told her the same thing about garden gnomes. But she knew those were just old wives' tales, and most likely lies. That doesn't mean she wasn't cautious around the gnomes. As George got closer to Ronnie started looking for a hiding place. And finally she saw a spot and she jumped into it and crouched down and got real quiet. George went walking by, and just as he was about to give up on looking for her, he remembered that his grandmother once told him that if you sing, it will lure out a troll. The music will catch their ear and drag them right out of their hiding spot. And so, George stopped walking and started singing a gnome song. Even though it was a gnome song, it was still one Ronnie knew well. Her mom used to sing it to her, and when it came time for the chorus, Ronnie just belted out the part she knew. George instantly knew where she was, and Ronnie had never done that before. She thought it was weird, but she thought that too was an old troll tale. George walked straight to her, and for some reason Ronnie was not afraid of the giant garden gnome. Any other troll would have fled and run away, but they, on that first night, had a blast, and finally, when Ronnie got back to her house, it was that time of morning when all the gnomes were getting up and going to work, and one super nosy, jealous gnome saw George walk Ronnie to the door. Now, there was not a good night kiss, there was no kissing, but they did hug, and from far away, I guess that hug kind of looked like a kiss. Sooner than later, the whole town knew about the supposed scandalous love affair that George Gnome was having with Ronnie the Troll. And George's mother found out. She immediately had to hatch a plan to separate them. After all, no self-respecting gnome-at-all mother could ever allow her son to date a troll. He was better than that. Just as she finished mumbling that thought, an idea bloomed into her head. She would order 1,000,000 pair of winklepickers. That way Ronnie would not have the time to be around George. And then she would also put George to work doing odd random jobs. And it was done. After the friendship was made, it was lost. And Ronnie would think of George every now and then when she would put the bop into winklepickers. She never heard from George again. Ronnie, after many, many months, finally finished the winklepicker order. She had not been outside in a long while, and the landscape had totally changed. Apparently, the human that kept the garden up had moved away, and the people who moved in just let everything grow any which way it wanted to grow, until they were forced to call a yard service. That because the county threatened fines. Y'all know how that is if you live in the city and you don't keep your stuff under control. The county's gonna fine you for it. Ronnie had enough money from the huge order from George's mom. She could have retired 4 times over, and she thought long and hard about it. To retire or not to retire? To retire, not to retire? She had achieved all the goals that she had set for her business, and she was feeling pretty old herself. It was then she decided she would retire from making the shoes. As Ronnie was walking, she glanced up to see the most amazing sight she had ever seen. This species had not been around for a long time. It was a periwinkle, but it was green ones. They were thought to be long extinct. Ronnie, seeing there were many green ones, picked a set and made her last pair of winklepickers, so she thought, and gave them to her friend Bonnie. It is said that some neighborhood kids came through about a year later and stole Bonnie, the gnome, so they could have her green shoes in their front yard. It was rumored that those shoes are the ones that Tinker Bell started out wearing before they refined her costume down. Once that rumor about Tinker Bell wearing winklepickers got out, Ronnie struck it even bigger. Orders suddenly were pouring in again, and Ronnie had no choice but to start making them again. She was the only one that could put the right amount of bop into him. And so, finally, years later, after shunning her from the city, the trolls wanted to share in her popularity and wealth. And when Ronnie politely declined, it was then the troll people realized and regretted treating her the way they did. Not getting to know the real Ronnie and not supporting her, and always assumed that she had a motive for doing the things that she used to do for them. George and his mama couldn't believe. He forgot about Ronnie, and his mother could have been the mother-in-law to the biggest maker of winkle pickers ever. But it turned out George died an old lonely gnome, beheaded by accident with a weed whacker. After officially retiring, Ronnie had secretly been donating to both the gnome colony and the troll city for upcoming generations of gnomes and trolls. The good thing to know is the money never changed her. She still handmade each shoe and put the bop in every pair of winkle pickers. And she was still friendly to all her fellow gnome neighbors. And as I recall it, Ronnie was making winkle pickers long into her aged years. It is said that when she made her final absolute last pair of winkle pickers, she went for a walk and watched the sun go down. And as the sun went down, she recalled her one and only night with George. And her eyes closed and she passed away that night. And this is where our story ends. Winkle pickers later fell out of style and disappeared off the map in the troll and gnome world. But once the humans got a hold of the design, they took it to the max with new designs and crazy shoes. And I mean, some of them came out really pointy, and they were like really almost flat elf shoes. It was crazy. That's the end of our story. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want, comment if you feel like it. I respond to every comment. Please be respectful and don't troll me, because I am the troll. I want to thank you for partaking in my channel. I want to thank Misfits and Dreamers, to whom this story would not be possible. And thank you to Bonnie. This is the only way I can think that you would ever own a pair of winkle pickers. And I want y'all to have a great week. Be safe, and I hope I took your mind away for a minute or two. No worries. Troll 9002, 2:58 a.m. in the morning. I'll see you on the next page turn. Take care.